Alright, welcome back to the channel. For this video we have a Wells Gardner K7500. And the note that came with this one says, "No clue, lots of distortion in the picture." So I guess we can take that as a sign that it powers up, but we're still going to test everything anyway. Now, the neck board got kind of smashed here. You can see the resistors are flattened out, and the color transistor here is all flopping around. This one's loose, so we'll have to take care of all of this. It's already got a cap kit and a flyback replaced on it, and the person did a good job with all that work. But I imagine they did all that to try and get the distortion in the picture resolved, but it must not have done anything. So we'll probably have to do reflow and a good inspection and see what we can find out. Now, the remote board was not sent to me, but fortunately I have one, so we'll plug it in. And we are going to remove the pincushion board for the testing here. I did notice that they did not replace the 50 volt 10 microfarad bipolar cap. This is the original bipolar cap. I'll see if I can get this replaced as well. But for now, let's go ahead and do some testing. Just for peace of mind prior to powering it up, so we know it's good. That should be 1500, that's correct. Alright. Okay, so we'll go to our diode checker. And we'll test first things first here. I'm going to remove the neck board for ease of testing. Okay, that's out of the way. So let's flip this over and we'll test our HOT, which will be these three pads right here. Negative on the base. That's good. Okay, HOT is good. We'll test our voltage regulator, which is this guy here. And it turns out to be these three pads right here. This triangle, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we'll do negative on the base, touch our two other leads here. 0.5 and 1.0. That's a good reading, that's correct. We can test our switch mode power supply chip, which is this guy right here. This U101, and the way this should read again is we should have a diode across these two pins. We should have a diode across these two pins. These two pins should be, I think, 1.0, and this should be about 1.7, 1.6. So switch mode power supply chip tests good. Our Q703, which is this guy right here, this, I don't know if it's NPN or PNP, I'm too lazy to memorize which ones are which, but it's this guy here with the heatsink. Let's see if I can, this guy right here. If that is open or bad, the chassis will not even turn on. So we will remove that. And it's these three right here. This pad is the base, so we'll go negative on the base and we'll touch each leg. 0.6 and 0.9. I think that's a good reading. Should I switch these around? Yeah, okay, so we've got there's the diode internal to the transistor, and the other side is the 1.0 give or take. So that is good. It's not shorted and it's not open. I do see now, looking at this, that there is a lifted trace here on this resistor. It has a lifted trace right here. This guy right there. So we'll have to fix that. It's still connected, but we'll have to fix it. So that's all of our main power. It should power up with based off of that. One other thing you want to check is your R104. It should be 10K. I've mentioned before, if this does not read 10K, then there's something wrong in this power circuit. And if any of these components were shorted or open or bad, this wouldn't read 10K because it all affects it. I've learned that the hard way previously. But wait a minute, look at that. Ah, we found something. We'll test our leads, 0 point, that's good. We'll test our resistor. That's not good. Look at that, 20 meg, 23 meg, 25 meg. So we've got an open resistor here. Well, there you go, right there on camera. That's why you check this, because I wasn't going to, and I decided to do that. I'm glad I did. So we've got, yeah, we definitely have an open R104. Just to make sure, let's go ahead and fire up the soldering iron. We'll remove it from the circuit. I don't have any of these on hand. If I don't have any, it's going to be a tough time trying to get this repaired. I think I probably do have one. If not, I'll steal one from another chassis. All the 74, 75, U2000, U5000, they all have this same part. So I may steal one from another chassis just to get this up and running and replace it later. But I want to see if this tests good or bad out of circuit. And we're almost at, we're at 550 degrees. That should be good enough. Let's go ahead and remove this. It is out of circuit. Let's just take the whole thing out while we're at it. Okay. So here we have a 10K ohm wire around, I'm sorry, ceramic, 10K ohm. You can see the 10K right there. And let's see what it reads out of circuit. Yes, it's definitely bad. Look at that. 35 meg ohm, 40 meg ohm. Well, hot dog. So, yep, that's why it's important to check that. So let's see if I can get one. Let's see if I can find one from a donor chassis, and I'll be right back. Well, it turns out that I do indeed have one. I actually have another K7500 here for a parts board. Wells Gardner Manufacturing, 27-inch 7500. So I actually have a whole spare board here for parts. Well, not whole. I have robbed some stuff over the years, but most importantly, I do have the resistor. So let's remove this one. Okay. And we'll test this one. Again, here's our bad one. Oh, there we go. Yeah, wow. That's climbing. It's open. Now it's open. Look at that. It is an open resistor. If I touch my legs here, we're good. It climbs up and, yep, 100% confirmed bad. Let's test this one. 12.3K, but that's fine. All right. So we found one possible problem. Obviously it won't work well with this being open. I can't even imagine that it would even have powered up with that being open, but I guess it did. Enough for them to get a, what was it, distorted picture. I don't want that one, I want this one. Okay. So let's get this braided out of here. All right. And we'll get it installed. So that's a good lesson as to, you know, I found something similar in the past. That's why I know to check that resistor. Because if that resistor is bad, then there's something something in the power circuit could have taken it out, or it just got bad because something died. It could be any number of reasons, but I can't even imagine that it was even powering up with this being open. But that's why you test this resistor, because this will tell you if either it's open, they don't short, but if it's open or if there's something else in the circuit that's bad. So if we put this back in the circuit and it reads 10K or 12K in this case without any other issues, then everything else should be okay. If, for instance, if there's an open capacitor or a shorted capacitor or other bad component in this power section, this won't read the 12K or 10K, it'll read something else. So if it reads the 10K or 12K, then we know that we're good and we can proceed on. So let's go ahead and get this in here. Let's get this tacked in here for a moment. There we go, he says, as it falls out. Let's try the one that's not on the ground plane. How about that? Well, they're both kind of on a big heating plane, but there we go. All right. Okay, that is in. It's going to be hot, so we'll give it a few seconds here to kind of cool down. Actually, it's not too hot. And what do you think? What's going to happen here? $12K, just like before. So we're good to go. Let's take a look and see if I can find a 50 volt 10 microfarad bipolar cap. Right there. Hot dog. I'm not very organized, or I would have these in a organized little container, but again, I'm lazy. And here we go. Let's see, 50 volt 10 microfarad, which is the same as what's in here. 50 volt 10 microfarad. So this old original cap will come out, and you can see that's quite the size difference on these things. Look at this one in there, and I'll do some reflow on some strategic areas along with that resistor that was loose. And then I'll take care of the neck board. And then we will fire it up and see what it does. So stay with me here for one moment, and I'll come back. I'll have all that done. I'll show it off, and we'll get it fired up. Real quick, I got this replaced here. This bipolar cap has been replaced. Here's the original one. But in doing so, I noticed that C111 here was broken. If you look at this capacitor here, it is broken. So I don't know if this was part of the cause of the problem as well, but I should be able to just desolder the leg here and stick this down through it without having to replace it. So I'll have to take care of that as well. So let me do that. Stand by here, and I'll get that done, and then we'll do all the work on the neck, and I'll show everything off here before we get it on the tube and turn it on. So one moment. Alright, sorry about the noise, but my desoldering iron is still running because I've got other stuff to do after this one, or my desoldering station. But yeah, it's all back together, ready to go. I got the neck board fixed up. You can see I got all of the transistor heat sinks aligned and transistors aligned, and the resistors repaired, and what is the C505 was laying flat. Got that straightened back out, and for the most part there really isn't that much heat damage on the back of this neck board. I was able to actually get most of this stuff, most of it to lay flat again and aligned without having to do much work on here. So it's actually not too bad. You know, most of this stuff is usually destroyed and lifted traces, but this actually isn't too bad. I was able to get this back the way that it's supposed to be without doing any kind of major surgery. So of course they're a bit loose, the heatsink is, because there's nothing securing it, but the transistors are nice and secure now. So that should be good. So we're good on the neck board, and I'll get the cover put back on after we do our testing. I went through, like I say, I already replaced the bipolar cap, so that's done. And I went through and did all of the strategic reflow on everywhere that needed it. For the most part, it wasn't too bad. The person who did the cap kit and the flyback did a good job, but there were a couple of pads that got some of the solder sucked away when they were wicking away, or however it was they were doing it. So I had to reflow a few pads, but there wasn't anything that leapt right out at me and said, oh, oh, there's our problem. Everything looked pretty good. So I just reflowed what looked like it needed a good reflow. I repaired C111, got that back in, and I think we're good to go. I didn't see anything else wrong, or nothing else really. It looks like I did notice that R727, yeah, R727 looks like it got kind of hot. You can see here it looks like it got kind of hot. So I'm going to test that. I haven't tested it. I wanted to test it on camera to see and find out if it's any good. This is the one that had the bad, or that was wiggling around here a little bit. So what I did was I actually, oh, no it's not. This is the one that was wiggling around. This one's wiggling around too. I fixed this one. I thought this was this one, but this one's fixed. I scraped away some of the solder mask on the trace and soldered directly to the solder trace, or to the trace, and that fixed it up and secured it. So I'll have to do the same thing to this one. I just noticed that one. I guess I didn't look over that well. I did, but I missed this one. So I'll have to fix this. You can see that is completely lifted off of there, right there. It's still connected, but so it would have been okay even if I hadn't found it. But what I'm really concerned about is the reading. So I'm going to take a reading here of this. Like I say, I don't edit out mistakes. We don't learn from mistakes if you don't admit them or show them. So let's see what it reads on this one. What the heck? Oh, it's missing from this one. Gosh darn it. Well, I've got a 7500 over here behind me that I have a working 7500 I'm going to take the chassis off of and use that tube for testing on this one. So I'll have to measure it on that one. Let me measure this one and we'll see what it reads in circuit. 3.6K. So let me read this one over here. So the one over here is 3.7K. So yeah, it's okay. So I'll just repair this real quick and then we'll fire it up on the tube and see what we get. What I'm going to do here is do what I did on the other one. And we'll just scrape away some of the mask here. So you can run traces and bodge wires, but this kind of strengthens the joint without having to run the wires. Just like that. It's fairly simple. Yeah, as you can see, or not. Yeah, I just scrape away on the trace and then solder right to it, and it works fairly well. The other side though is gonna have to be scraped away as well. Like I say, normally I use these fiberglass pins, but this one here is not actually fiberglass. It's like a bristle, a soft bristle, and it's garbage. I still haven't been able to source the correct good ones. So until then, I just scrape it away the old-fashioned way. Sounds like a commercial jingle. Scrape it away the old-fashioned way. There we go. That should work. I'll call that good enough for government work. Alright, and now that is rock solid. I'm not going to bend it or push or break it, but it's solid now. So, alright, now we'll get this on the tube and we will see what happens. I can't say whether or not the what did that say? What did that note say? Lots of distortion in the picture, so I don't know if the distortion was due to this C111 being broken, or whether it was R104 being open, or any of these bad solder joints. I couldn't say. So hopefully it fires up fine. So we'll get it on the tube and we'll find out. Well, we're all hooked up, ready to go. I got power, anode, neck, yoke, ground, video, and we've got our what else was it? The oh, I went ahead and reinstalled the, what's the word? Pincushion board. Sorry, I'm getting so old my brain quits working. It's like I go into it just stops working. You know, like Star Trek. You know, the computer working, waiting for it to start spitting out something. So the pincushion board is reinstalled just so we can test it, and if it has a weird image, I'll pull it off and see if it makes a difference. And I got the remote board installed from the other chassis that originally was on this tube, since this one didn't come with it. So we're all hooked up and ready to go. So I assume it'll fire up. If it does, we'll see what kind of image it gives me. Since this is a medium resolution only, I have to use my test pattern generator. It is set to medium resolution. It is turned on. So 1, 2, 3. Hopefully nothing blows up. Let's see what happens. Alright, high voltage. And we have an image. Whoa, look at that. Well, I don't see any distortion. Of course, it's way out of adjustment. So again, here we go. Brightness and contrast completely down. Whoa, it's weird. Brightness and contrast down. When I do that, it starts wigging out on me. You can see it flickering. Let's do flyback is too high, so let's turn that down. Do it from this side. Well, that's kind of weird. Roughly there. And since brightness and contrast is all the way down, let's go right about there with it. Let's go there with it. Okay, now let's do brightness. Oh, wait a minute. This stupid thing, this is backwards. You turn it to the right and it goes all the way down. All the way left turns it full brightness. So I go left here. If I turn this to the left, it turns everything up. So this is an aftermarket one from Paradise Arcade, and the pots actually go backwards. I didn't realize that, sorry. So all the way to the right is everything all the way down. So let's try this again. You live and you learn. There. So there's raster lines and no raster lines. So the flyback needs to stay right there. Okay. Now we'll do brightness. Nope, I turn the brightness up, my raster lines come back. Can you see that? Well, maybe you can't. Yeah, there's the raster lines. So we need to turn the flyback down a little bit more. We'll go there. Yep, that's good. Okay, now we'll turn the brightness back down a little bit and contrast. Whoa! I forgot to mention, oh, sorry. I forgot to mention that I've got all the color pots set to center. So right now there's the contrast completely down. I just barely turn it up. Right about there is the maximum I can have it without it bleeding. There is bleeding. So if we turn this down roughly there, okay, I think that'll work. Right about there. Height. Each position. That looks pretty good. Let's do our focus. There we go. Well, okay. I think we're a successful repair here. Let's scroll through. There's our color. Looks pretty darn good. Nice and sharp. There's our convergence. Convergence looks good. And yeah, I say we're good to go. So let's review. We had an open R104. We had a broken C111 and some other suspect solder joints. But otherwise, yeah, looks like we're on the right track. I certainly don't see any distortion in the picture. Most likely was because the open R104, I'm sure the screen was having all kinds of AC ripple or something. But as you can see, it's good to go now. A little bit of gouging here on the side, but again, it's not saying on this tube, so I'm not going to worry about it. But let's turn our color pots down slightly, because they are all in the center. See, just tweaking them a little bit, it makes a huge difference. I mean, I turned them maybe just a little bit, like an eighth of a turn, and look how much, it just makes a big difference. So there's, yeah, right before it starts bleeding, right there. So I will call that good. I will call this a successful repair. So hopefully you learned something. I appreciate you watching, and as always, until next time. Oh, sorry, here I kind of got to cut in at the end. I totally forgot to mention this transistor. Normally on the other chassis, this transistor is mounted right, it's hard to see, right there. It's normally mounted right there. But on the 7500 they remote mount it, and it has to do with width, your horizontal size. If this transistor is not installed, you will have no width control. You can turn the width control to your heart's content and it will not increase or decrease the horizontal size. You must have this transistor installed, and it must be installed in this manner. If it's upside down the other way, it won't work. So they remote mounted this, you know, it's usually mounted here on the frame. There's a little bracket that this is mounted to on the frame. This is a dedicated 7500 chassis, replacement 7500 only, you know, so, and it says right here, 25-inch 7501. So it's definitely the original tube for a 7500, but it doesn't have the bracket here for this to mount. I think somebody probably removed it at some point, but I forgot to mention this, that you have to have this installed in order for your width to have any kind of control. So I wanted to mention that before we finally finish this. So again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.